Well, hello, welcome to the July 2022 meeting of the Historic Highway 99 Association. We do have a couple of announcements. The first being that although we don't have a date set yet, but the city of Redlands will be the next city to get historic route signs posted, which is partially thanks to the Redlands Conservancy and the Redlands Area Historical Society. So those groups are working with the city to get the signs posted, and they donated all the money for them. So that was pretty cool. We are also still in progress on getting the 1925 concrete, at least the date stamps, saved on Roberts Road out in the Calamasa area. We are in talks with this city of Calamasa, as well as the developers of the projects that are going on in that area. Everybody seems to be on board. It's just trying to coordinate efforts and figure out who's going to go out there and cut the concrete. The city of Calamasa has agreed to take possession of the concrete once we get it cut out, or whoever it does get it cut out. It may be something that we donate the effort, we donate the materials, or whatever. We're trying to get it coordinated. And so yeah, so a few things going on. Unfortunately, there was no newsletter at this go around. Been in the middle of a move, so that's kind of taken all my energy away. So do expect a newsletter next time, which would be, well, the end of August or possibly sooner. Might do an interim one. If anybody wants to submit anything, we could definitely use the help. So without further ado, we do have a guest speaker this meeting. It is Jessica Chu with the Helen and Joe Chu Foundation, and they have a lot to talk about in regards with the goings on in Red Bluff and surrounding area. Give me just a moment here. Okay, so okay, so take it away.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Great. First, I'd like to thank you very much for having me today. My name is Jessica. I'm the president of the Helen and Joe Chu Foundation, and also the founder with my fellow alumni. And what I'm most proud of is the fact that I'm the only grandchild of Joe Chu, and I'm the last person in my family to be born in Red Bluff. My grandfather was the last Chu resident in Red Bluff, and he's mostly known for his beloved restaurant, the Main Terrace. And what I'd like to share with you today is a little story about the Chinatown that once flourished in Red Bluff as a result of the old Route 99 meeting 99 West to East in Red Bluff. The foundation was created in honor of my family, and our goal is to share loving memories while encouraging education. A few projects that we're working on most recently is the new street signs for a historic Chinatown alley naming, which is the 2-block radius behind my grandfather's old restaurant, and it's parallel to the old Chinatown. We're also working on a book called Images of America, Chinese in Tehama County. We've sponsored a terracotta horse design with the local artist called Tehama Creative. And we're working on the cemetery landmarks for the Chinese section of the cemetery. And some of the Chinese headstone replacements and some veteran markers. And most importantly, our scholarship fund. So the history of Chinatown in Red Bluff. As I mentioned, historic Route 99 meets east and west. Well, that little pocket of intersection was Chinatown. And you can kind of see where the arrow is. There's a little circle. Chinatown was along the Sacramento River. And this is my Auntie Julia on the left. The houses behind her is the main street of Chinatown. So the history of Chinese actually goes through several milestones. Red Bluff's Chinese are mostly descendants from China's imperial period that went from 3000 BC and ended in 1912. In America, the first documented Chinese voyaged to Baltimore in 1785. And then in 1848, when gold was discovered, Chinese people arrived in Red Bluff by steamboat because it was last stop. And then in 1850 to 1970s, there were several different types of labor companies, including American and Chinese labor companies, soliciting in China to go abroad for work. And what they would also solicit is that one could go to the Gamsam, which is the gold mountain in Cantonese, and they could start to get rich by finding gold in California. And then they can use their riches to improve their village, fund education programs, obtain land opportunities for community expansion. And then there's a couple of early settlers in Red Bluff. By 1862, the Wong Foy family is the first one to settle in Red Bluff so far, from what I've researched. And then in 1865, the Chu family arrives. And they are merchants, otherwise known as Chinese herbal doctors. And then in 1876, there's the first anti-Chinese organization called the Working Men's Union. And then 10 years later, there's two other anti-Chinese societies that are created in an attempt to drive out the Chinese. And then the following year after that, there's another organization that's created against anti-Chinese. And then in 1875, there's the Page Act, which stops the entry of Chinese laborers and women into the United States. And then officially in 1882, US Congress passes the Chinese Exclusion Act, which suspends Chinese immigration to the US. And I'll talk about that later. And then in 1913, California alien law barred immigrants from owning land. And that was specifically for the Chinese as well. And then in 1943, the Magnuson Act would finally repeal the Chinese Exclusion Act. So sometimes when I think about this, I put it in terms of how old was my grandpa? Well, in 1943, when the Chinese Exclusion Act was finally repealed, my grandpa's about 22 years old. So I can't imagine that, the inequality that he experienced all the way up to his 20s. So why was there a Chinatown? Well, logically, people went to the last steamboat stop. And a lot of people, not just Chinese, came to Red Bluff because it was the furthest point north, and it's the last ferry stop on the steamboat. The ferry stop would eventually create Pine Street. So you can see I've already highlighted on the left the yellow. That's how you get off of the steamboat, and then you work your way towards Pine Street. To the right of that becomes Chinatown. And if you see the circle on the left, you can see some people looking down. Well, this is the crossroads, and this would become 99 West on the left, where those people are standing. And then one block further becomes Main Street, and that's 99 East. And on the right-hand side, you can see a picture from Google Maps of what 99 East before it intersects with the West looks like. So this is today versus in 1890. So what did Chinatown look like? Well, when you got off the steamboat, you would walk up to Pine Street, as I mentioned, and Chinatown was on the right. The area was created actually out of segregation. So this neighborhood on Pine Street goes 2 blocks, and this is what we call Rio Street today. And it's a segregated neighborhood in the historic district. On record, it was officially called Chinatown. And like the tales of many towns today that are central business districts are usually former Chinatowns. And in most cities, they're former Route 99. But the truth is, Chinatown was very prosperous. It thrived because it was strategically located adjacent to the railroad tracks, which would become 99. And the Sierra Flume Lumber Company would fill up cargo, and they would load those cargo logs in and bring them into the railroad yard. So here you can kind of see this bridge. This bridge that goes across the Sacramento River goes all the way to the depot, and that's where the lumber yard would send the logs. And on the right-hand side of that, that's where Chinatown was. But Red Bluff was strategically located because it was very central to different modes of transportation. And what that offered was a variety of jobs for all types of people. It offered the expansion of the rail line. There were seasonal farming jobs. There's the famous rock walls that are throughout the North State. And then there was other seasonal work, working for different families as cooks or gardeners. The tells from the Chu family. Well, in 1872, Red Bluff used to have a depot before the 99 East. And on the left-hand side, you can see our family at the depot. You can see one of the old trains. Well, we used to operate a restaurant called the California Cafe that was opened in 1903, and it was directly across the street from the depot. And in the middle, you see my Uncle Dick and my Auntie Nettie at the California Cafe. It operated until Dick died. And to the right where the circle is, this is what the restaurant looks like today. For the most part, the exterior is exactly the same as how we had it. It's just different paint color. And my Uncle Dick was in charge of the restaurant until he died. It was located at 619 Walnut Street, and it was open 7 days a week. He would become most famous for his special Chinese barbecue pork, and he would roast a whole pig in the back using wooden logs, and he would get those logs from the Forward family's lumber mill. Well, as I mentioned, in 1882, there was the Chinese Exclusion Act, and that's our country's first law to ban immigration by essentially being of Chinese ethnicity. And the 1875 Page Act also prevented Chinese women from immigrating. The only exception was to be a merchant, teacher, student, or diplomat. So in theory, my family should have had no problem coming to America. My great-grandfather, Chu Yu, he's in the middle picture here, and he had traveled many times from China to America in the early 1800s. But in 1914, he decided that he would bring my great-grandmother, my Uncle Dick, and Uncle Ned to America. And they were detained for almost a month in San Francisco's Angel Island. The four of them that you see here were separated, incarcerated, interrogated several times, and subject to the health inspections that you see here with the young boys. And it was culturally a very violating experience to undress in front of a stranger and you're without your parents. But the takeaway here is that the community of Red Bluff and its most notable non-Chinese pioneers banded together in a petition for my family to come home to Red Bluff. Shortly after my family's release from Angel Island, the town celebrated because my Auntie Violet was born. And as the paper reported, a joyful baby girl was born. There were so many supporters of the notable Chinese pioneers from Red Bluff. The first Chu to arrive in Red Bluff is famous Dr. Bodo Hong. He leased a little store at 838 Rio Street, and he opened a Chinese medical herb shop. By today's standards, this is the equivalent to traditional Chinese medicine for natural healing. It's actually incorporated in medical school now. Both the store and Dr. Chu were known as Bodo Hong, but this wasn't his real name because Bodo Hong actually means all of the protector of health. He was born in 1837 and he died in 1909. He had immigrated to the United States in 1865 as an educated doctor. And a quote by Grace Gone is that one could go to the Bodong Home Company and purchase Chinese medicine, groceries, do a little banking, play a few games, and drink Mingape. And on the right-hand side, this is a bag that we found in our things where you can see how banking was conducted. And my great-grandfather used to do the bookkeeping and accounting. So here's a picture of what it looked like in 1865, 1870. On the left, that's the inside of the herbal shop. And by the 1900s, the Bodo Hong Hall becomes the community center where Chinese trials, like civil courts, are held to resolve disputes. It's essentially the justice system on an as-needed basis. And in front of the hall, there used to be an annual Chinese New Year celebration. And Dr. Bodo Hong used to host an annual Chinese American banquet to merge the two cultures in Red Bluff. And he hosted the event here in the Bodo Hong Hall, which you see on the right, until 1903, when he moved the event to the Chinese Masonic Lodge. It was extremely well attended. And the Kuomintang Association was created, and then that became the use for the Bodo Hong as for community purposes. In 1886, I found a map that kind of gives you a really good indication of where we're at. On the left-hand side, you see 3 Chinese laundromats. Well, that's Main Street, and that's 99 East. And as I mentioned, there was the Chu Yuan doctor. He was located on Walnut Street in Rio. And as I mentioned about Rio Street, there's the Kuomintang. It's approximately where you see the number 7 was where the Bodo Hong Hall used to be, and that became the two-family residence. There also used to be a Chinese Masonic Lodge, and there used to be a Chinese temple in 1912, and it's approximately located there. And the alley naming that I had mentioned, if you see, the alley naming is parallel to the old historic Chinatown. Well, in 1909, Bodo Hong dies. His nephew, Chu Yuan, takes over the practice, and he decides he's going to buy out his fellow partners. That's pretty unusual for any Chinese business to be owned by a sole proprietor in those days. Usually you had numerous partners, most of them were relatives. And so he decides that he's going to construct the only Chinese commissioned building built in Red Bluff, and it's still standing today. And in this picture, you can see the building constructed in 1950. It was used as an herbal business until 1970 by his children. And then this is what it looks like today in 2022. It looks almost exactly the same. And I haven't had the luxury of going inside, but I imagine not very much has changed, which is incredible. But one of the things that he does that's so interesting is he hires the famous masonry O'Connor brothers to construct a large banquet hall in the basement. And it's large enough to fit all of his friends, all of his noble friends in Red Bluff, so that they can continue the tradition of the Chinese American banquet for New Year's. And the Owens and the Fish family actually become the coordinators for this very eagerly attended event. But going back to the town's petition in support of my great-grandparents, just think about that one act of kindness that created multiple generations. So this is Chu Yan with the Chu and his children. So these are my grandpa's cousins and nieces and nephews. And he was considered a very splendid person in Red Bluff. He was highly regarded. He was Christian faith, so all the kids went to Presbyterian and Methodist Church. And on the right-hand side, this is a clipping from the newspaper. And one of the most popular people in Red Bluff is the G.K. King family. And he thanks Chu Yuan for his courteousness shown to the Americans. And he highly regards him for his honesty and integrity. And so Red Bluff really had a lot of support when it came to the Chinatown that was here and that used to thrive. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Well, it's not really showing, but I had a picture. Okay, going back a couple of slides, the Chu resident, which is on the right. Well, everybody lived in the Chu Yuan building together as a family. That's in line with Chinese custom. But after 2 generations, the family was huge. And so the Chu family, which is my great-grandfather, they moved to the Bodo Hong Hall, and it becomes the Chu residence. Well, the Chu residence would become the last building in Chinatown before it's demolished. And it was a wood structure. So it's the last wooden structure from the old Chinatown to be demolished. And so it goes in 1949, the family pulls their money together and they have to move. And so they buy the building that would become the Ming Terrace. And on the left-hand side, this is the grand opening in 1949. Well, all the kids, they pull their money together, they take it from the pinball machine and they buy this building. And for the first time, the Chu family would serve Chinese American cuisines instead of American comfort food. My family operated the Ming Terrace until 1973, and it's the last residence and business to operate in Red Bluff's Chinatown next to the Yen building, which was the herbal practice. Well, the old Highway 99 used to be along Main Street in Red Bluff, and this was specifically very strategic for my grandfather because it brought a bunch of people to stop for gas, and you can see the Chevron picture in the back, and those folks would then tell people to go to my grandfather's restaurant. And so a lot of people would stop by the restaurant, and my grandpa would give them a free cup of Joe, which is my grandpa's name. At the onset of the Great Depression, the Chu family would forever be known for offering free meals on an honor system in order to prevent people from going hungry. And this tradition would remain in the family for the entire duration of both the California Cafe and the New Terrace. My family ultimately closed the restaurant because of the construction of I-5, which, like many Chinatowns, would deter traffic away from the restaurant and forever eliminating the Chinatown altogether. And so you can kind of see, this is where I-5 is, and you can see how much traffic gets deterred from what used to be the old 99, where it intersected with 99 West and East. And since my grandpa was strategically located there, he used to get a lot of business. And so it took a lot of wisdom, and I'm sure it was a very difficult decision for them to close the restaurant, but also very smart thing to do. And on the right-hand side, we used to have a little jukebox that everybody talks about. But this little girl, this cute little girl is my mom on her birthday at the restaurant. So today, there's no longer Chinatown in Red Bluff. But in 2021, just before my grandpa passed away, the Ming Terrace sign, we found out it was being restored. And this is what it looks like in its restoration status. And my grandfather had a chance to see it. So hopefully I can share a little video with you. So I hope everybody had a chance to see that little video. It's really cute of my grandpa getting to see the sign for the last time. And I'll make sure that the links are shared. So what are we doing now? Well, we just had the alley name restored to historic Chinatown. That was as of July 21st, June 21st. And it's a 2-block radius. It's 723 feet. And we're working on the design rendering right now. So this is a proposal that we have, and we're using the same vendor as you guys. So thank you for that. Really appreciate the recommendation. And the goal is to have something like this put onto the post. And there's 6 posts, so we need to make sure it's going to be double-sided and visible on both sides. And I'd like to thank you for attending. I'm going to pause here to see if there's any questions. And if you'd like, I can keep going and show you some more pictures.
One thing, so how does one donate to the foundation for the signage? Are you? I'm assuming you're doing some fundraising.
Yeah, we are doing some fundraising. You can go to our website and you can donate there. We have specific causes for donation. We're currently in the process of applying for a grant. And so we're putting together a program to complement the signs, because it's great to have signs, but there still needs to be some educational tools to make sure that the Chinese history is more accessible for people. And so part of our goals is that everything that we work on relates to the Chinese history of Red Bluff and raising awareness regarding that Chinese history. One of them is the terracotta horse, which is a time period piece to kind of stimulate minds about, world history. The other one is putting QR codes in the public spaces. So along that alleyway, and people have the ability to scan those codes and get redirected to our website, and they can actually read more history. The history I shared with you today is only one family story, but there were 3,000 Chinese people in Red Bluff. And so there's lots of stories out there of different families, and many Chinatowns that the Route 99 had come across that were changed when I-5 was constructed. And like I said, there's a lot of parallels between our story and other towns throughout the state, really.
It sounds like you're getting plenty of help and cooperation from the city of Red Bluff. How about like local historical societies or historic groups? How much cooperation or coordination are you doing with groups like that?
Yeah, good question. Timing's everything. Luckily, even though my grandpa was almost 100 years old when he died, he still retained all those legacy friendships in the community. So when he passed away, I made sure that we mobilized quickly on the activities with preserving the Chinese history and the heritage. So the genealogy societies had already worked with him several years before on multiple projects for integrating the Chinese history from our side into their publications. And I'm going to partner with them next year on their memories release. So it's like a local booklet that goes out to the community that they can purchase. And I'm going to complete the true story with my grandfather's side. We've already got the early half of it written, but not the later stage, which is Jochu. But we are not receiving any opposition. Like I mentioned, timing's everything. The memory of the Ming Terrace and my grandpa's legacy here is still very much cherished in people's hearts. So like I mentioned, the timing of that, hasn't been any opposition so far.
Actually, I was pretty happy when I love old signs, and when I saw the picture of the sign above Ming Terrace, and I thought, oh, it'd be great if they could have kept that old sign. And then when your slide came up showing that it's in a process of restoration, I just thought that was so cool. Yeah,
it's thrilling that somebody cared enough to go track it down and to restore it, and that he has it. In addition to that, there's nothing more meaningful to me than the fact that my grandfather had the ability to see it restored. So it's incredible.
So has the restoration been completed, and where is it going to hang, or where is it going to be displayed?
That's a good question. He's still working on the restoration. I actually checked in with him this week, and I'm not sure where this sign should go. It's huge. It's bigger than a garage door. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed the presentation, and because you're such a wonderful group and you touch so many pieces of so much history, especially in California, I do want to take a moment to make sure that the takeaway is really, as you're going through these projects of the old historic Route 99, take a moment, look around. Main Street or Central Business District is probably where an old Chinatown used to be, and ask around about the old Chinatowns, because sometimes you might see the old neon signs somewhere. Sometimes you might just see some writing on the walls, but everything that makes California wonderful was this just blended contribution of different people coming together and creating California and making Route 99. And Route 99 was a big contributor to a lot of Chinatowns.
There's definitely a lot of history along the road. I mean, it was the backbone of California. It's connected so much. It's more than just pavement. There's the people that traveled along it. And that's what the story in Red Bluff. I was not aware that there was that much to it. You wouldn't know it today, but there was quite a bit.
You wouldn't know it, but hopefully we can get some signs up beyond the street signs and put some markers up so people understand the history. Chinatown existed for over 100 years in Red Bluff, and it thrived. And like I mentioned, there were supporters of other nationalities, which is why the Chinatown was so successful and the anti-Chinese organizations were unsuccessful.
So are there any plans there in Red Bluff, in the Chinatown area, are there any plans to, and I think maybe you alluded to this, to put up any kind of interpretive displays or signs or anything in that quadrant of the city?
Yeah, we're working to, at least now that the alley has been named, to put up some murals And there's two historical murals that are a preference. One is a map of the old Chinatown that we showed you today to give a framework of and orient people where they are. The other one would be a veterans mural because the Chinese families just recently received a Congressional Gold Medal. And this medal is so beautiful. My grandpa was one of 3 people to receive it. Uncle Henry also received it. And then Danny On, he's got a trail named after him in Montana. And the medal that you see on the right, it has every different division that the Chinese veterans participated in during World War II. So our idea is to have this reframed into a mural. It gives you so much context about what it is to be Chinese American, about how long it took for them to get recognition for their service. In addition, World War II helped in eliminating the Chinese Exclusion Act. So this medal represents a lot as far as cultural enrichment, especially to the historic district.
That is pretty amazing too. I mean, it's unfortunately it took a war, a big war, to get to change it, but yeah, that's really cool.
So if you're ever in Red Bluff, we hope you stop by and you see our new signs.
Oh, definitely will. I have a lot more reasons to go up through that area.
No, Jessica, that was a very good presentation. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Well, thank you for attending. And we've got a QR code for you guys. So this QR code is our digital walking tour. That way it can orient you to the historic Chinatown. It provides pictures and placements of where you're at, and gives you background on not just our family, but some of the other families that live in the area. So that's, you just scan it. If you're ever in the area, maybe you don't want to go to the area and you want to do it from home, but that tour is our gift to you guys.
Just did.
Oh, perfect. Good job.
I will definitely have to add that to our Highway 99 adventures. Yet more to explore. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, that was a wonderful presentation. There's really a lot more to learn.
Thank you so much, Michael, for everything you've done. I mean, you've helped us a lot. You helped put a paper out for the Helen and Joe Chu Foundation. When I reached out to you, you were extremely supportive from the very beginning. You offered your street vendor sign, which is the person that we're working with. And you've just been such a great supporter for us. I really appreciate everything that you've done.
I'm really glad to help. You know, that's the thing with the 99 Association. It's trying to do what we can to promote as much as we can of the history along it, not just of the roadway, but of the towns along the way. And, you know, whatever we can find that's gives it that extra bit of, call it flavor, makes it more interesting, makes it more enjoyable.
So I like I say, I went ahead and hit the QR code. So this is what you see when it'll pull up a Google map thing, and it'll show your all your different locations on site, and tap on any one of those that tells you, brings up a picture. It's pretty cool.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, Google Maps has made things a lot easier. So you go to My Maps under Google, and then you can do your own program, and you can make it public or private. And so we made ours on Google public.
A friend of mine is actually working, helping the association with marking where 99 went, among other roads, using Google Maps, and it's been quite helpful. You can pick, track what year a road went, different places, because there were, in some cases, major shifts, especially here in Southern California.
Yeah, they've done that So Jessica, what you don't know is I'm in the state of Washington. I'm up in Sequim, I've been all up and down the West Coast a lot, and 99 is a big interest of mine. But there is one site out there that does something very similar to what Michael was just talking about, and it's I think it's pacifichighway.net. Anyway, they also have done that where they show it's a Google Maps, and they've different alignments. And then they have a little legend saying, well, this was from, say, 1915 to 1926, and this was from 26 to 32, and they're all color coded. And it's very, it's like, okay, I can follow that.
I used that site in 2009 when I was planning my bicycle tour along 99 through Washington. It was quite helpful.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you for joining us for the meeting. It's always a lot of fun. So we the various meetings that we've had, we learned about you had shown a picture of the gas station that was adjacent to the restaurant. Well, it was a Standard Oil station, right? Part of, Chevron was a sort of it's a renaming of it. Chevron got their start in Southern California, a little town called Mentryville, which was just west of 99, and we actually had a presentation on that last year. So there's even a connection there. So what else? So we are going to post information about how you can make donations for the signs or any of the other causes for the foundation there. I donated $50 towards the signs. Got to start somehow. So hopefully that gets it going. Other than that, does anybody have any additional questions?
I know Bruce asked what other organizations we're working with. A lot. You guys are one of them, but also there is an Asian group in Sacramento that we're working with, and they've been helping us do public outreach to the senior citizens there. And then the Red Bluff Daily News was very supportive. They write articles on our activities all the time. And then, as I mentioned, we're partnering with the local creative artists, which is called Team the Creatives, and then partnering with the schools, because I hope that this is something that the students can do and do field trips and an activity for the kids here. And that's something that's very important to us. And then the local cemetery has been super supportive about landmarking the Chinese section. So we have a lot of support, and luckily been able to partner with a lot of different organizations and reaching out for help as needed.
Well, that's really cool. I mean, it's good to get that. It is a group effort. So other than that, I don't have any other announcements. Still not sure what our next meeting is going to be, but we're definitely going to have another good presentation. I'll be making an announcement, of course, when we get the signage posted in Red Bluff, or not Red Bluff, Redlands. A lot of red along Red Bluff, Redding, Redlands. This time, since it's in Southern California, it should be much easier for me to attend. I missed the sign posting there in Madera. So if you don't have anything else, I think that pretty well concludes our meeting. But once again, thank everybody for attending, and thank you, Jessica, for a wonderful presentation. It's really been learned quite a bit. There's a lot of history there, and that's just one small part of that history.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.